A state with some of the most lenient gun laws in the nation now facing a lawsuit by the NRA. The group filing a federal lawsuit against the state of Florida after it passed a new gun law tightening restrictions for buying some firearms. The new restriction coming less than a month after the deadly school shooting in Parkland. Here's Governor Rick Scott.
Today should serve as an example to the entire country that government can and must move fast. I said at the beginning of this process less than 3 weeks ago that we have to be very careful as we balance our individual rights with our need for public safety.
Let's turn now to our legal panel. Trial attorney Rachel Self and Richard St. Paul, a defense attorney and member of the Republican Lawyers Association. Good to have both of you. Starting out with you, Rachel, thank you. What do you think about Florida's new gun law?
I think it's a step in the right direction. No one in their right mind, Arthel, thinks that it should be easier to buy a gun than it is to buy a six-pack. And certainly no one in their right mind thinks that it should be easier to buy 6 guns than it is 1 can of beer. They've made a step in the right direction here. And really, I think the NRA is going to be on slippery footing with their lawsuit. I think they're going to have a tough time with it.
I'll get you to expound on that in a moment, but let me get Richard's take on Florida's new gun law.
No, I think there are certain provisions of the gun law that are good, with the exception of the provision that deals with raising the age from 18 to 21 to purchase a rifle. Certainly that is not contemplated in terms of keeping people safe. What keeps people safe is common sense legislation. It doesn't include raising the age. It includes keeping weapons out of the hands of criminals, keeping weapons out of the hands of mental illness. There's no information here to connect to say that raising the age will keep people safer. And in addition to that, the Gun Control Act of 1968, that's a federal law, allowed people to purchase rifles and shotguns who were between the ages of 18 and 20. The reason being for that is so that they can use those weapons as hunting. I think the NRA is on point here with their particular challenge to this specific part of Florida's lawsuit.
So then I know what you think about the NRA's lawsuit. Rachel, hold on. It's against Florida, filed in federal district court. And to reiterate, the NRA wants to block raising the age to purchase long guns or rifles, which, as we know by federal law that Richard just said, allows, it already prohibits anyone under 21 from purchasing a handgun from a federally licensed firearms dealer. That doesn't talk about gun shows. So, Rachel, to you, do you think the NRA has a strong case?
I don't. And here's why, Arthel. One of the most fundamental rights in this country is the right to vote. And we regulate that right every single day. We regulate how old you can be. We regulate whether or not you can be a criminal. We regulate if you haven't registered properly, you'll lose out on that fundamental right. And that's a much less dangerous right in a lot of respects than the right to bear arms. Here, if we do some basic regulation, people might need to wait a little longer to be able to carry a gun. But you need to wait at the RMV to be able to drive a car. You need to wait to turn 21 to be able to buy beer. And here, I think it makes a lot of sense to need to perhaps wait until you're 21 years old to be able to go out and purchase a gun. We've seen that the maturity of children these days, compared to what it was back in 1968, when the gun laws did raise the age to 21, has gone backwards. And so I say raise it. Raise it until somebody is appropriate in all respects to be able to have that gun and have so safely.
So, Richard,
and I think that based on the fact...
Go ahead, finish, Rachel.
Go ahead. No, I think that based on the fact that historically in our country we have had controls on all sorts of measures, I think that age is not going to be something that is an issue here.
So then let me jump in here, though, Richard, before you jump in, because, okay, but Richard, does Florida Governor Rick Scott get credit for taking action, or is this simply not the way to fix the problem?
No, he does get credit for taking action. Obviously, there should be a response, but it has to be common sense. Look, Rachel is right to a certain extent that there are regulations on our constitutional rights. The First Amendment, if there's a clear and present danger, time, place, and manner, there are restrictions on all our constitutional rights. But it has to bear some rational basis for the state to take action to stop you from exercising your constitutional right, or there has to be some compelling government interest.
So, Richard, you just have a problem with the age limit, right? Is that your problem?
That's right, just the age limit. That's just there's no rational basis or compelling government interest. to raise it from 18 to 21.
and the
There is
kids
no
that have
data to
been
support
shooting
that
up-
that's going to
One
make
at a time.
people
Finish.
safer.
The 19-year-old child
not-
that shot up the Florida school is evidence to support that the age should be raised, Richard. And I think that
that's one child.
amongst
That's one
most,
child out of millions, and who had mental
yeah,
illness.
And,
Okay, he should have been
absolutely,
stopped
and that's
beforehand.
another thing that the
was a
Florida
lapse.
bill
That was a
and
lapse
Hold on, guys.
in the background.
Stop, please. 1 second. Hold on. Stop.
Okay,
Richard, finish your thought, and then I'll let Rachel jump in.
Sure, that was each incident here needs to be looked at specifically. That was a lapse in the background check. He shouldn't have had that rifle. It has nothing to do with the other 18 to 21-year-olds who used the rifles properly. No, not everyone should be punished just because one child did something wrong who should have been prevented from doing it under the current laws.
Go ahead, Rachel.
No, but I think that the issue here, though, is that we need to. It's a balancing test, right? And we need to balance the compelling state interest here, and we need to balance public safety against this. And I don't think that there's a single person out there that's going to fundamentally think that their rights are so severely infringed for an 18, 19, or 20-year-old. And this is not the first state to have a 21-year-old law. It's just the first state that's pro-gun to have a 21-year-old law, which I think speaks for itself. The fact that even Florida is saying enough is enough here. We need to be more careful. We need to protect our children. Since 2008,
Rachel,
when the
listen,
individual right...
You know, listen, I'm sorry, I'm just told we're out of time. I understand your passion about this particular topic. There will be many more stories that we're going to do on this because this is far from, it's just the beginning of this. So Rachel Self and Richard St. Paul will have you both back again sometime, and I thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you both.
Same here.